Claes, Oldenburg and Coosje van Bruggen's theatrical performance, The Corso del Coltello, was first staged in Venice in 1985. A collaboration with architect Frank Gehry and curator and critic Germano Celant, the project provided the artists an opportunity to break the perceived boundaries between art, architecture and performance, and produce new forms of lived and live abstraction through the sociability of performance. Inviting a group of 4 artists to reenact, digest and discuss the performance while sitting amongst the material thingness of Claes and Coosje's props, sculptures, sketches and costumes, Pace's one-day workshop and resultant film examine the historic basis and the contemporary resonance of a work that proposed new ways of working together.
I think language is a place to make another artwork that the art doesn't, for me, just stop necessarily at the show around the object.
I think if it speaks to the present moment, it is something about a utopian collaborative space. It's a moment where a kind of spirit of experimentalism and a spirit of collaboration is necessary to kind of attempt to create a post-pandemic reality.
I feel like I like that absurd of not knowing what's going to happen in a performance that I really related to, of being like, I want the environment to feel literally abducted.
Yeah, there were absolutely no apologies made in any direction. There was no apology made towards architecture, there was no apology made towards visual arts. Every single thing is thought through to within an inch of its life.
Corso del Coltello, also called the Kitsch Dragon or Murky Apollo, is an importer of souvenirs from Switzerland who tries to sell his wares without license while posing as a tourist. I say, you have some very fine metals. I have a lot of souvenirs. You've noticed perhaps I have a little display here. Would you be interested in my souvenirs by any chance? How about this obelisk?
Georgia Sandbag was formerly a travel agent who developed a taste for adventure while sitting behind a desk all day, helping others journey to exotic places. I mind my own business. I follow in the footsteps of Calamity Jane. I don't need you. I am independent. You guys, let's move it.
Frankie P. Toronto is a barber from Venice, California, on a perpetual lecture tour presenting his theory of disorganized order in architecture. Architects today all talk about order. I've heard them talk about order. The order they emulate is unfortunately a kind of sadomasochistic, materialistic, militaristic order which has nothing to do with the human spirit.
Basta Carambola is an itinerant poolroom hustler and translator from Trieste who organizes lectures by foreigners wherever his Hungarian gypsy blood leads him. Can I help you translate?
Please, don't disturb me, please. Una notte Lord Byron Nauto.
Nuoto Italiano.
Okay, you do it, please, you do it.
Primo Sporticus is a touring boxer from Novia Zemlya. Sporticus is a connoisseur of patriotic bric-a-brac, which makes his stay in Venice a delight.
All right, here we have the D'Artagnan, one of my finest.
D'Artagnan, French.
French, this is done by the sculptor Rodin.
Rodin, yes. So my question is to each of you, what did you find, recognize or connect with in Coltello and its history?
The sort of fiction that was being written around the time of this piece was all about questioning a sort of stable reality and allowing space for these kind of weird archetypes to collide around. And you think of absurdist drama like Ionesco and these kind of performances that were put on immediately after the Second World War, which had this kind of antic and sort of weightless quality, but there was a sort of panic to that weightlessness that, you know, that nothing's meaning anything and therefore there are no stakes to any of our interactions together. It's almost like the absurd is giving way to the kind of 80s postmodernism where the weightlessness and the scale is changing all the time and people and things are fusing together, but that's no longer a crisis, it's entertainment.
For me, making art, it's mostly getting to collaborate with people I love and like doing it earnestly and creating like absurd things that don't exist or wouldn't exist without the possibility of our imaginations coming together. And that's like what I feel most hopeful about. And I'm like, this is so crazy what they did. I'm obsessed with it.
When you can have so many minds working together and when you can, like, that really takes the artist to be able to let go of authorship, to let go of, you know, that's my idea, and, you know, and the way that creativity and the ideas and energy flows is so incredible. You're able to make new things that you can't make on your own, but the artists do have to be able to let go of their ego a little bit and their ideas of authorship.
It very much feels like that. There is a kind of bleed, and as I read it, often I've used Oldenburg, and then I read, and it's Coosje that's decided it's a knife, and it's Gary that's decided that the snake image should be there, but it's not foregrounded. It's very much a group authorial.
Maybe Coosje decided it was a knife because someone else suggested it be a butcher knife. And then she said Swiss knife. Like all these ideas, like when you're working together, you're riffing.
That was this moment of the performance revival in the aughts, and I feel like one thing that everyone's gotten past, which I think is great, is that no one's really hung up on authenticity in that way anymore. Like you can be as kind of like over the top as you want. Coltello is kind of unique in that no one seems too hung up about the disciplinary boundaries.
There is a joyfulness to it that seems entirely absent in the culture now, for clear reasons and otherwise. There were all these forms coming together, which I think now is very commonplace. We are so used to the idea of a fluidity of form. But 10 years ago, even in New York, there was a Whitney Biennial that celebrated this new idea. Yet here we are in the mid-80s, and this is, to a certain extent, commonplace.